Hi, you're watching West Bloomfield 911. I'm your host, Tim Shepard, and on behalf of Chief Michael Patton and my Deputy Chief Kurt Lawson, and my brothers and sisters in blue, I'd like to welcome you all to the show. Joining me today is Dr. Gerald Hill, Superintendent of West Bloomfield School District. Dr. Hill, thank you very much for coming out today. I appreciate it. I know you're a busy man, and I appreciate you taking the time to come here and talk about the school and yourself and let the community know what's going on with our schools.
Oh, thanks, Officer Shepard. I'm pleased to be here and always happy to talk about the schools.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So we're going to jump right into it, and I want to talk about, obviously you're superintendent of schools, and we'll talk about how you got there. But in terms of your background, how did you decide to go into education? What was your educational background to get you where you're at?
Sure. Well, reflecting way back, why I decided to go into education, when I was growing up, particularly when I was 9th through 12th grade, the key influencers in my life were teachers, educators, coaches, and I really looked up to that group of people and admired them. And I think I knew as a junior in high school, I was a member of a group, a Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and we did some volunteering, and we went to special needs school, and we just got really involved with the kids there, and it was highly rewarding. And so at that point, I knew I wanted to be a teacher.
Well, so, it's interesting because a lot of people don't know what they want to do. I think there's a balance of both, right? But I think when you're that young, and you said you were in like middle school, so like at the age group?
I was in middle school and then in high school, the junior in high school, and I knew I wanted to be an educator.
Just out of curiosity, so you played sports when you were a kid, what kind of sport?
Oh, I was a football player,
a
basketball player, and a baseball player.
All right, so well-rounded athlete.
I enjoyed the hook for me to be in school were the athletics.
Yeah, I think that's, I have children myself, and I think that athletics do a lot in terms of socializing, keeping you involved with the schools, and obviously you said Christian athletes, and so that's something that with your faith, I think as well, is a huge deal. So going through determining you wanted to be an educator, how did you go down that path? Did you obviously went to college, but did you, what college did you go to?
Sure, I went to the University of Minnesota.
Okay.
I got my bachelor's degree and a master's degree from the University of Minnesota, Minneapolis campus. I taught originally in the same high school or school district that I graduated from high school from.
Okay.
And I knew a lot of the people in that system because they had been my teachers.
Okay.
And so it was an unusual kind of a feeling to be working with the people who had been your teachers in the past. I taught elementary, however.
Okay.
I taught grade 4, 5, and 6. Thoroughly enjoyed it. When I taught, I only wanted to be a teacher. I didn't want anything to do with that principal's office and all that. And I got to thinking, well, I could do that job and influence more people in a positive way. So I became a principal. And I was a teacher for 7 years, a principal for 7 years, and as I'm being a principal, the last thing I want to do is go to central office because I wanted to be around kids and teachers. Then I decided, well, I could make a more positive impact, a broader impact if I were in the central office, and so I became an assistant superintendent and was in charge of instruction in elementary schools and did that for 7 years. The 7 keeps appearing on my...
It's interesting, yeah.
And so then after 7 years of that, I got the bug, if you will, to be a superintendent. And I have been a superintendent now for over 20 years. I thoroughly enjoy the role I'm in. You can have an impact on a much broader scale, and I enjoy particularly the community involvement aspects of being a superintendent.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, I know you outside of the TV show, and I know that you're very involved in the community as well. So let me ask you this. You came from Minnesota then? Is that where you grew up?
I grew up in Minnesota. Actually, I went to 13 different schools in my 12 years of public education.
Well, why is that?
So my father was a construction worker, and he followed the big jobs. So we were in Minnesota, we were in Kansas, we were in Colorado, we went back to Minnesota. And I did have the luxury of going 9th through 12 in the same system at the end of it. So
that's important. I mean, I think when you're at that age, your socialization and your friends are very important. And I think transferring. I mean, we have to do it sometimes, based on your life situation. But it's nice that you were able to stay that time. I have a son, and we're determining if we want him to go to a different school, and not for any particular reason, but we talked to him, and it was very important to him that he stayed with the kids that he had been with. So I think that's wonderful that you got to stay through those years. Now, being from Minnesota in that general area, I mean, obviously Michigan is environmental temperature-wise very similar, right?
Yeah,
So you were comfortable. Now, how did you make your transition over from Minnesota to Michigan?
Okay, so there's a path that I continue. I got this experience growing up with moving.
Okay.
So my professional career, I was 5 years in Minnesota. I was 15 years in the Dallas, Texas area, suburban Dallas. I was a teacher, principal, and assistant superintendent in the same system, Garland Independent School District in the Dallas area. And then I had an opportunity, moved to the St. Louis area as an assistant superintendent. So I was in the Rockwood School District, suburban St. Louis. And I was there for 3 years, and then I became a superintendent, but my first superintendent job was in the Chicago area. And so I worked Chicago on the far south side, Tinley Park, for about 7 years again. And then I moved to Glenview, which is in the North Cook County area, again, suburban Chicago. And then I was in Glenview when we transitioned from Glenview to Michigan. So what I've seen through Minnesota, Texas, Missouri, Illinois, and Michigan is that teaching and learning is consistent, but the politics are way different. The support for public education is different, and all the rules and the way the way the school districts are funded are different. But when it comes down to the interaction between the student and the teacher and the parents, there's the consistency.
Yeah, I think that when you're at the administrative level, you're more involved with those differences in terms of the politics and the finances and things like that. As a parent, I try to be informed of my school district and what's going on, but I mean, my most important thing, I think that I can speak for most parents, is that our kids are being, educated. Our kids are being brought up with some kind of hope for the future in terms of jobs, and opportunities for them. And I think that as an administrator, is that something that you guys think about? Is it primarily just the education part? I mean, what's the overall mentality of an administrator?
Well, the first thing we try to do is to establish and create a dynamic learning environment where relationships are key. Relationships between teachers and students are key, between teachers and parents are key, and people need to feel welcome to come into their school, to visit the classroom, to know what's going on. And of course, with technology, we have different ways of being invitational today, because you can be a busy parent on the road and you can still have access to what's happening in the classroom. And within the schools, it starts with the relationships and making sure that the teachers work with one another in a collaborative way. And we strongly emphasize that. And what are we here for? We're here for the benefit of students. We're here for developing students from socio-emotional perspective, academically, of course, but to be responsible citizens. And it's a complete package. And I think if we model those kind of behaviors that we're seeking, then we're more apt to be successful.
Absolutely. And I think that just my experience with I deal with a lot of schools in my position as a crime prevention officer, so I deal with a lot of the frontline staff. What I mean by that is teachers, assistant principals, different staff. And I can just say from my experience is that in the West Bloomfield School District, I think the staffing is unbelievable. I think we have a great school district, and I think that it's leadership that has gotten us to where we're at. I mean, obviously, there's been multiple leaders. How long have you been a leader in the school district? Has it been 7 years?
Yeah, I've been 7 years.
Has it been 7 years?
Yeah, and the board asked me how long I intended to be in West Bloomfield when they hired me, and I told them, well, whenever you get tired of me, let me know. And I'm enjoying what I do. My wife and I, when we were making the decision to leave Glenview, we were looking for a community that would be a great place to live, that would be supportive of education, a community that we could get involved in, both of us. And my wife Cindy is involved in a lot of things, volunteer-wise, and serving on various committees and service clubs. She's the president of the Rotary, for example. And so we feel that we are really enjoying being in West Bloomfield because it's a community that's really focused on what's right for all of its citizens, and especially the young people. I mean, we service students from West Bloomfield, from Sylvan Lake, from Kego Harbor, from Orchard Lake, and then with the School of Choice program, we get students from all over the place because we're such a quality school system. People want to be here. And when you visit the schools, the atmosphere within the schools, as you say, is positive.
Sure.
And I enjoy seeing the young people interacting with one another.
I agree. I think that's important. And we're going to get more into the unique school system we have here on after our break. Mm-hmm. And so we're going to take a short break and return with more West Bloomfield 911.
The West Bloomfield Police Foundation raises money to help those who protect and serve the community. Whether it's emotional or financial support, the foundation provides a helping hand to officers, their families, and those in the community. For more information on the West Bloomfield Police Foundation, contact Kurt Lawson at 248-975-8900 or visit wbpolicefoundation.org.
Hello. I'm Lisa Brown, Oakland County Clerk, Register of Deeds. You know to check your credit report, but when's the last time you checked the title to your property? Most likely your home is your biggest financial investment, and deed fraud is on the rise across the whole country. Oakland County is no exception. That's why I worked with Xerox and Google to create our Property Records Notification System. Property Records Notification alerts property owners about potentially fraudulent activity, such as forged deeds and bogus liens. This free service, which is the first of its kind in the United States, makes it possible to receive up-to-date information about a property, making it much more difficult for fraudsters to go undetected. To sign up for our free notification system, please visit ocmideeds.com.
Welcome back to West Bloomfield 911. I'm your host, Tim Shepard, and again, I'm here with Dr. Gerald Hill of the West Bloomfield School District. And Dr. Hill, again, thanks for joining me today. I appreciate it. So we learned a little bit about you in the first little segment there, and I want to go into some more about specifics in our community and the school district. So I know we have a unique setup in the township. Can you tell me a little bit about that and how that works?
Yeah, the Michigan school boundaries are confusing to the layperson. We're in West Bloomfield Township, but I know that you in your jurisdiction probably deal with 6, 7 different school districts.
Yes.
And we are West Bloomfield School District, but our school district is parts of West Bloomfield, Kego Harbor, a little bit of Sylvan Lake, okay. and so we also have multiple municipalities we work with.
Okay.
And so it's just one of those things where back whenever the design was made, it was more by the farming communities or the smaller communities, and they form the way they are.
Okay.
But that being the case, I like it because we're in contact, myself professionally, with superintendents from Walled Lake, with superintendents from Farmington,
okay.
Waterford, Pontiac, and we have 28 school districts in Oakland County, and so there's a great deal of interaction between all 28 of us, especially when we talk about snow days and
right,
those type
yeah,
of things.
And we've had quite a few of those this year. So is this something unique to our area? When you were in your other jobs in different locations in different states, was that, did they have the same kind of setups? Or
yeah, it was particularly in Missouri,
okay.
the school district I was a part of, Rockwood. There's no town called Rockwood, it's
okay.
just called Rockwood, and we were 8 different municipalities, parts of,
okay.
not all of any of them, just parts of 8. In Garland, Texas, it was mostly just all Garland, but there were 2 or 3 different jurisdictions there.
Okay.
And so it's just part of the fabric of how schools are organized across
okay.
the United States.
Yeah, it's interesting because, like I said, I really hadn't experienced that until I came working for the township, and then obviously the different schools, and in our city or our township that are a part of a different school district. It's an interesting concept, but as long as it works, and I think it does work in the township. We have a great school district. Obviously, I'm sure you're proud of the school district, and I think many of the communities around us look at us as kind of the benchmark of what a good education is and what a good school district is. So in terms of keeping up with the times, keeping up with the, how should we say, the buildings, the hard structures. How is that run? What's going on in West Bloomfield right now?
Okay. Well, a lot of it, I need to compliment our Board of Education, because they were forward thinking a few years ago. We saw that our infrastructure, the schools that we currently have, were in dire need of updating.
Okay.
And so the board made a determination to go to the voters and say, here's a plan that we have to update all of our schools, and by the way, to close a couple old and build a new.
Okay.
And so we had a bond proposal, and the bond proposal was a interesting time because the economic situation wasn't all that great.
Okay.
And we were wondering how the voters would respond, and
Sure.
so we had a powerful message from my perspective. It wasn't about bricks and mortar, it was about teaching and learning, and how can we improve the teaching and learning environments in our schools. And so we passed a $120 million bond, and the voters approved it at a 70% yes rate.
Which is a great number.
It was a really gratifying number.
Sure.
And so now we're in the process, we're in the middle of how are we going to be upgrading our schools.
Okay.
And right now, this past summer, we did our phase 1 of the high school. We did some significant renovations at the high school.
Okay.
We renovated Chico and Doherty Elementary next door to here. This coming summer, we're going to go into phase 2 at the high school. And then we're going to also be working on Scotch Elementary and Gretschko Elementary, and doing some significant remodeling and refurbishment of those. Then in year 3, we start phase 3 of the high school, and then we go into Roosevelt, and we're going to be upgrading Roosevelt. And right now, as you and I speak, we are planning our new middle school. We're going to be closing Orchard Lake Middle School and Abbott Middle School, and in the fall of 2022, there will be a new school on the current site of Orchard Lake Middle School. And we're working with our architectural team, we're working with our various committees in designing what will be the new middle school.
So, first of all, that's amazing. I know the high school. I go to the high school quite often for speeches and talks, and you know, this high school looks great. And I think that that those dollars spent on the high school are going to be paid back in numerous amounts by the great education these kids are going to get, because infrastructure is important. We know that, and we know that you know, having quality buildings, equipment, teachers, that all goes to the administration. And listen, I know it's the voters, and I know it's a collaborative endeavor. But in terms of the administration, and when I say administration, I'm talking about superintendent, how do you decide on what's a priority? Is there a way that, is it collaborative effort with a team you're with, or how does this all come about, especially with the infrastructure type issues?
Yeah, and we recently adopted the 4 C's.
Okay.
And the 4 C's are communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and creative problem solving, and contributor. But we practice those 4 C's in the development of our schools. So we want our schools to be places where those soft skills can happen. And we need a different kind of teaching and learning environment than hallways and classrooms down the hallways and desks affixed to the floor. You know, your typical 1950s vision of what a school looked like. We want furnishings that are flexible. We want learning spaces that are flexible, and if you go into the high school now, you'll see that. We have small learning group spaces all around the perimeter of the high school. We're utilizing the I-Center library way differently than we had in the past, and we're taking a look at our instructional design, what our teachers are doing, how they like to meet the students' needs. Learners are different today. It's not all sit and get.
Sure.
They're more interactive, they're more participative, there's more choices. And so we have one-to-one technology. Well, the school structure has to support that.
Sure.
We have to support small group instruction, large group instruction. We have to be able to change on the dime. And so all of that goes into the planning of what the facility looks like and functions. And so if you walked into West Bloomfield High School, if you graduated 3 years ago, you walk in today, you'd have a hard time recognizing it.
I had a hard time just from last year, right? I mean, I literally walked in, and I mean, the aesthetics obviously are a lot different, but I think the learning environment is different with the more open areas. And I think that's great. I think that the forward thinking of the school board has really made a difference in terms of what's important now. Not just, okay, they're coming to school Monday through Friday and they have their books. They're looking at the kids we have today. I'm not sure if they're called millennials, but the younger kids are that age group, and how excuse me, how are they best able to learn in that environment? And I think that's gone into the infrastructure design.
Right.
When it comes to design, you said you're working with the architects with the new school. So it's going to be on the location of Orchard Lake Middle School. And tell me again, you're combining two schools?
Yes, we looked at our enrollment projections down the road, and we had more than enough, but too much space between the two middle schools, Abbott Middle School and Orchard Lake Middle School. So we're designing a school that'll hold between 1,200 and 1,400 students.
Wow.
Which sounds like a lot of students.
Yeah, it does.
So what we're doing with the design, and by the way, on the design team, we have teachers, we have administrators, we have school board members, and so we have a lot of different people looking at what are we trying to do teaching and learning wise within the school. And so if you envision a middle school, you have grades 6, 7, and 8.
Okay.
Well, they're not all going to be in the same place. We're going to have a grouping of classrooms that will be predominantly 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade. Then we'll have auditorium, fine arts, theater area.
Nice.
And then we will have the physical education gymnasium. And then we're also going to try to take advantage of the site and have outdoor spaces that are also conducive to learning. And so we're designing the school with flexibility in mind, but really how are we going to be teaching not only today, but 10 years from now?
That's excellent.
And so we need to have that flexibility of space built into the process.
Yeah, that's perfect.
It's an exciting process, and a lot of minds are wrapped around it right now.
Yeah, that's wonderful that there's that much forethought into it, not just let's build a new building. So in terms of buildings, we're going to wrap this up in a minute, but there's something I want to touch on that, these days there's a lot of things that happen in terms of active assailants, things like that. I know that the school board has taken a direction towards how to prepare. Hopefully this would never happen, but what has the school board and yourself decided in terms of preparing for any kind of active assailants, situations like that?
Yeah, unfortunately in our society we have to consider that with all of the frequency of mass shootings, and safety is of paramount importance. So we partnered with the West Bloomfield Police Department, as you're aware, and we've conducted A.L.I.C.E training, and A.L.I.C.E stands for Alert, Lockdown, Inform, counter, and evacuate, not necessarily in that order.
Sure.
And so all of our staff have been trained. We had a lot of on-site training. Over 100 people got trained that way, and then everybody did the online training.
Okay.
And we will continue that effort in training teachers how to respond to emergency crises situations through the A.L.I.C.E methods. We also, through the bond program, we are changing the entrances to the schools and making them more secure. We're putting in really sophisticated camera systems so we can see throughout the campus, the school, and we're working with the West Bloomfield Police Department on the placement of those cameras, and so that if there is an emergency, the police can see and we can see at the same time what's going on where. And then we also have, instead of the mechanical keys, we have key fobs. And so
nice.
access is going to be electronic. We'll know who's coming when and where, and in and out by the key fob. So there are a number of things. We're trying to harden the school's structure without going crazy and making it seem like a prison, because these are places of learning. They need to be dynamic and safe feeling, but not constrictive. And so there's that fine line between the two. But we really enjoy a great relationship with the West Bloomfield Police Department, actually the Orchard Lake and the Keego Harbor Police Departments as well. And we will be looking at our plans in conjunction with yourself and your colleagues and Chief Patton, and to make sure that we have the best plan, the best response system in place.
I think that's wonderful, and obviously I'm a police officer, so I want people to be safe. And I just think that the community should know that how important of an issue it is to the administration that their children are safe in these schools. We have a wonderful school district, obviously. I think you feel that way. And the community, I think, like I had just mentioned, it's important that they understand that you as an administrator not only think about your buildings, your infrastructure, your textbooks, your computers, but you're also thinking about the safety of these kids. Right. And unfortunately, in the world we live in today, there's those things that happen. And I think that West Bloomfield School District is done wonderful in terms of preparing. Hopefully that would never happen here. Right. But it's wonderful that you are taking the approach of a preemptive strike, right? You're making sure that target, or hardening the buildings and things like that. Right. So, I want to thank you for coming out today and taking the time to speak with me. It's wonderful to learn about you and to learn about the school district. And I'd like to thank you for joining us for this episode of West Bloomfield 911. You can keep up with the police department by liking us on Facebook, following us on Twitter and Instagram. You can also sign up for Nixle.com and crimemapping.com for the most up-to-date information from the police department. Thank you for watching. Take care.